Austin, Texas has been ranked multiple times as the #1 best city to move to in the US. This has caused the city to experience massive rapid growth in population size due to thousands of people moving here every year. For those of y'all who don't know me, I was born in Austin. This is my hometown. I absolutely love it here, and it will always have a special place in my heart. But with that being said, just like every city, Austin does have its downsides. And as a true local Austinite, I feel perfectly qualified to talk about those downsides and hopefully prevent anyone out there from wasting time and money by moving to a city that isn't right for you. So here are 6 reasons why you shouldn't move to Austin, Texas. So the first thing I want to talk about is the weather. Austin has a humid subtropical climate, which means we have really hot and humid summers and mild to cold winters. And when I say hot summers, I mean really hot summers. Especially in July and August, you can expect it to be pretty much near 100 degrees every day, and it is not uncommon for the heat index to be about 107 degrees. So it is currently about 3:22 in the afternoon, and it is hot outside. I was looking at what my iPad says. It is 96 degrees and feels like 104. It's pretty hot here. It gets really hot. If you aren't used to this type of heat or don't want to deal with this heat, I don't recommend coming here in the summer. After the summer, about like October through about May, it's nowhere near this hot. But it won't get cold enough for it to snow or anything. It'll be mainly in like the 60s or 70s. So it's actually pretty nice throughout the rest of the year. But in the summer, it gets pretty hot. But because it gets so hot here in the summer, most people tend to spend most of their time indoors in the nice cold air condition. And I know me personally, I don't go outside unless it's in the early morning or in the late evening just to beat that summer heat. So I'll typically just like play video games during the daytime or edit videos, or work on music, or just find something to do indoors to really beat that heat. Unless you're gonna go to a lake or a pool. That's a great way to beat the heat. I recommend doing that a lot in the summer just because it will feel so refreshing. The next thing I want to talk about is traffic. Traffic is absolutely terrible here. And although it has gotten a lot better now that everyone is working remote due to COVID, it used to not be so great. I don't think the traffic was ever as bad as LA or New York, but it certainly felt that way at times. They have improved public transportation since Austin started becoming a booming tech city about 10 to 15 years ago, but it's still nowhere near as what it should be, and it's definitely like nowhere near what LA offers or what New York offers. We do have a rail line, but it pretty much only covers North Austin to downtown Austin. If you live in South Austin, you just won't ever use it. And I personally live in South Austin, so I never even use the rail. I actually never even see it. Buses actually do cover a large range of the city. I personally rode buses to my college. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, and I catch a bus in South Austin and just ride it all the way up there. So it is good to have that option. Oh, and if you're a college student, public transportation is free in the city of Austin. So, reason number 3. There are no beaches or mountains near or in the city whatsoever. Hopefully you knew that Austin didn't have any beaches considering it's in the center of Texas, but maybe you didn't know it didn't have mountains. If you head out west, there are some like cliff things, like maybe rocky hills if that's what you want to call them. But other than that, there really aren't any mountains here. I personally wish there were mountains and beaches here. I mean, I remember the first time I went to Colorado and I saw some like massive mountains, and it was absolutely awesome being able to hike in the mountains. And if Austin had that, man, that'd be sick. And beaches as well. Man, if we have beaches, we'd be able to go surfing, we'd be able to have beach parties, we'd be able to go on walks at night on the beach or during the day for that matter. I mean, I just feel like having a beach opens up so many opportunities and options to do for fun than if you live in a city that doesn't have a beach. I mean, Austin does have lakes and pools and creeks, We do have lots of water activities that people love to do on Town Lake, such as kayaking and supping, especially in the months of July and August. People also love to go boating on Lake Travis, so that's another popular thing here. But in my opinion, none of those things really beat having a beach. Because I mean, technically you can do all of those things on the ocean, so... Reason number 4 is something you might have not been expecting, but it has to do with wildlife. And no, I'm not talking about your common like snakes. Yes, Austin does have snakes. We got spiders, we got roaches, we got a lot of animals that people might not like. We do get the occasional gator as well, although that's very rare. But I'm not talking about any of those things. I'm talking about bats. Now, if you are afraid of bats, you might want to reconsider moving here, because Austin has a lot of them. We have a giant colony living underneath the Congress Bridge in pretty much right next to downtown. I mean, it's pretty much in the heart of Austin. There's about 1.5 million Mexican free-tailed bats living underneath that bridge. And in the summer, they pretty much fly out every night. Like, they just like go, it's actually a really cool sight to see. Lots of people line up on the bridge and underneath the bridge to see it happen. But I mean, if bats aren't your thing, you might not want to move here, just because in the summer, it's pretty common to see them just flying a couple feet above your head. All right, so we are at Zilker Park right now, and there are currently bats flying directly over our head. I'm gonna try to get them on camera for you guys, but it is dark, so I don't know if we'll be able to pick it up. Those are bats. Those little black things flying in the air. Oh yeah, there is one. They're all right here. Another bat. I mean, don't get alarmed, like the bats never do anything to people. I mean, honestly, I feel like it's kind of hard to tell they're bats unless you're like really paying attention, because oftentimes like they just look like small birds flying in the air. They never do anything to people, so there's no need to really be alarmed. I've never had a bad experience with the bats here. The only thing I recommend being careful with is you never want to touch or pick up a bat on the ground, just because it could have rabies. If you get rabies, that would suck. You might die. Plus you might also have to get a lot of rabies shots, which doesn't sound fun. Yeah, just don't pick up any dead or lying on the ground bats, and you should be okay. Another reason why you might not want to move to Austin is because of its political views. Texas as a whole is known as a very conservative state, and that is very true, but the same can't be said about Austin. Austin's political views kind of more align with Seattle or LA or pretty much any other big liberal city in the US. I'm not quite sure why this is, but if this bothers you, you can pretty much pick any other city in the state of Texas, as they'll more likely be more conservative than Austin. My final reason for why you shouldn't move to Austin, Texas is the costs of living. Austin is nowhere near as expensive as San Francisco or New York or LA, but it is the most expensive city to live in the state of Texas. This is largely due to the rapid growth that we experienced in Austin. Tons of people moved here, and therefore we needed to build more houses, more apartments, and that caused the renting and housing prices to skyrocket. The median housing prices in Austin are around $369,000 compared to the national average of about $200,000, but they can be a lot more expensive than that depending on where you look in Austin. Pretty much, if you're looking near downtown Austin, expect the housing prices to be around $1 million. If you go north or south, you can pretty much find a house around the $300,000 mark, but you can also find them around the $500,000, $600,000, maybe even $700,000 range. If those housing prices are still too high for you, what a lot of people do in this city is they either move really north or really south. So you'll get a lot of people moving to Round Rock, which is just north of Austin, or you'll get a lot of people moving to Buda or Kyle, which is just south of Austin. And typically you can find houses that are cheaper in those areas compared to the houses you find in the Austin city limits. As far as rent for apartments go, you can pretty much expect to pay around $1,400 a month for a single bedroom apartment, or around $1,700 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Another option that you do have is to actually rent a house and split the cost of rent with a couple of friends. I actually do have some friends doing this just because it does provide a bigger space. It can also be cheaper than renting a double bedroom or single bedroom apartment. Now, the other thing you have to pay attention to is property taxes. In 2018, homeowners had to pay around $7,500 in property taxes, and that number goes up every year. And depending on where you live in Austin, those numbers can actually be a lot higher than that. I do know for a fact that if you do live near downtown, your property taxes will be a lot higher for sure. I've seen property taxes go for around $15,000, some even $19,000, and they could probably be higher than that, honestly. So just be aware of that. Now, with all this being said, and none of these things actually bother you, and you're still thinking about moving to Austin, I absolutely recommend giving it a try, because you will honestly probably really like it here. In my opinion, Austin is a great city. There's lots of fun things to do here, it's a very dog-friendly city, and there's lots of young people here. I personally really like it here. Although I do see myself moving out of the city for a bit just to experience living in a different city and kind of give my life a little change. But I could see myself moving back here eventually. You know, all my family lives here, and I personally think it's a great city to raise a family in as well. If you enjoyed watching this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or can think of any other reasons as to why you shouldn't move to Austin, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.